Well, good afternoon. I have to say, and this is one of the things I love often about coming to events at the World Bank, is when I walked in that front door and I was hoping I had everything to make sure I would get registered okay. I didn't leave it in the hotel room. I just felt the energy. Everybody comes in, they're talking. It seems like you're happy and getting together, and it's a great way to start. I'm so happy to be here again. I'm very honored that I've been asked by the World Bank to participate in one of their events. And this one is, well, let's just say, we know that the Fragility Forum is addressing many, many important issues, many of them difficult. And I think this is the question, people are in this rapidly evolving world of FCV. They're trying to adapt, they're trying to innovate while the world is shifting under their feet. And we're going to talk to some people today who are involved in that process in their own way, look at what they're doing and how they're helping to lift everyone up. So to kick things off, right here in the front row, Osman Diagana, he's the World Bank Vice President for Western and Central Africa. You lead 23 countries, man. $40 billion worth of resources on your plate. You got a lot to do, so welcome.
Very nice countries. Good afternoon, everybody, and good to see you. I would like to thank Sukena and the team for giving me the opportunity to be here, and obviously to thank in advance our changemaker speakers for sharing their inspiring stories with us and for joining us today to discuss how the global community can create an environment to support other entrepreneurs and creators. The best lesson we can learn are from those who have already forged the path that we would like others to follow. I'm very, very honored to speak to you today on the important topic of entrepreneurship and its important role in building stability and promoting resilience in fragile and conflict environment. I just came back from Mali. I just spent 4 days there, and in 4 days I will be on my way to Burkina Faso. And in Mali, I had the wonderful opportunity to engage with the private sector actors, to entrepreneurs, women and men, young and relatively less young, but all very, very, very committed to support the economy in a time of fragility and very difficult challenges. And they are doing well. And of course, it's not specific to Mali. Everywhere we know that the private sector provides the essential of jobs in terms of quantity and sometimes even in terms of quality, especially in FCV's countries. The jobs which entrepreneurs create are critically important for giving opportunity to youth and to women and to building social and economic stability. Of course, as the entrepreneur on this stage will tell you, entrepreneurship is not easy. Creating the condition for the private sector to thrive and create job and opportunity is also not straightforward, particularly in fragile and insecure contexts. Entrepreneurs in FCV contexts often face great challenge to access services, financing, and new market. It can often be difficult for an entrepreneur to turn an idea into a bankable project. This can be a major bottleneck to even getting off the ground. But I want to emphasize that none of these conditions are deal breakers. The World Bank Group supports countries every day to overcome their challenges. It's important to emphasize that one size doesn't fit all. The World Bank Group recognizes that different environments require different approaches. The strength of our institution is that working together we can offer public and private solutions to even the most difficult problems. The work we are doing internally to create a bigger, better bank is intended to increase the impact we have on the ground for our client. As a World Bank Group, we have many tools in our toolkit which allow us to address different challenges at the same time. As you know, IFC, our private sector arm, provides assistance to grow the pipeline of bankable projects in countries. For example, IFC supports entrepreneurship in the Africa region through the Local Champion Initiative. This initiative aims to create a pipeline of investable transactions, in particular in Sahel and West Africa, by improving the investment readiness of domestic companies. The IFC can also help lower regulatory barriers, improve legal protection for creditors and stakeholders, and expand access to finance for small and medium enterprises. Financial inclusion is crucial in FCV environment where financial markets tend to be shallow and financial inclusion is particularly low. MIGA provides assistance to reduce risk to investors, including in FCV context. Using guarantees and other instruments, these interventions can help increase foreign investment in fragile and conflict environment by covering risk related to expropriation, war, and civil disturbance. The World Bank, IBRD, and IDA support private sector development in FCV state by focusing our effort on removing constraints through reforms, supporting entrepreneurship, business development, market access, institutional capacity, regulatory environment, financial inclusion, and financial infrastructure, or by mobilizing private capital. We have, for your information, 40 advisory and analytic projects and 30 lending projects in FCV countries, with a total budget of over 3.4 billion and a strong in-country presence. For example, in Burkina Faso, we are initiating a new 160 million entrepreneurship skills and technology project to build the capacity of SMEs and extend government services to business and in insecure areas. In Nigeria, the Development Finance and Entrepreneurship Project promotes digital financial products and skills for more than 4,500 women entrepreneurs. The Trade Facilitation West Africa program promotes the efficient and reliable movement of goods in 6 trade and transport corridors linking 9 countries, including those in Sahel. In Mali, the support to agro-industrial competitive project supported more than 14,000 farmers and other beneficiaries in the Sikasso, Bamako, Koulikoro agricultural basin. The project led to a tripling of the volume of mangoes processed and a doubling of mango export. We are also financing through a number of programs in Mali, including in the mining sector, in pastoralism area, in agriculture, number of initiatives that help support the resilience of community, in particular of women and youth. Finally, I would like to emphasize the importance of partnership in supporting entrepreneurship in FCV's setting. The World Bank Group has developed strategic partnership framework with the United Nations and other agencies to join forces in FCVs from data collection to programs implementation. By working closely with country actors, for instance, with UN peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Mali, the World Bank Group can provide rapid development support as soon as insecure areas are stabilized. The importance of entrepreneurship in fostering job creation and economic stability in fragile and conflict-affected countries cannot be overstated. Our commitment to empowering entrepreneurs is long-standing. as always, we must be listening to the need of the people on the ground and listening to their ideas and their aspirations. With that, I look forward to hearing the inspiring stories of my fellow panelists, and I would like to thank you for your attention and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Now, can you hear me? Great. All right. Thank you so very much. And, I love that you use the word entrepreneur so much, because when I think of SCV and I think of these troubled areas where it's hard for people just to be able to get up out of the door some days and get food for their children in the most extreme circumstances, basically people don't just want to survive, they want to thrive. And there's so much talent and there's so many ideas around the world. Anyway, I'm so glad you stressed that part of it. So let's get right to this. Change makers. These guys are change makers. They came up, they became very successful in their fields, fine dining, fashion, social entrepreneur, sports, business of sports. And before we get into some of the specifics of the issues we want to raise, particularly in relation to you guys, this is what you do, this is what you're involved in. What can you learn? How can all this help you? I want to give them each a minute. This is like a lightning thing where tell us your story in a minute. What is it? What got you from there to here? And Chef Thiem, I didn't even introduce him, Chef Pierre Thiem. That's you, you know. I said you brought cuisine to the world, Western African cuisine. You've done so much. You got 60 seconds.
60 seconds. Well, born and raised in Dakar and moved to New York City and really found my calling there, really, as a young cook, cooking in the so-called food capital of the world, and realizing that the cuisine of my background, my origins, was absent of that world. You know, that was late 80s, early 90s, New York City. And I saw it as an opportunity, and that opportunity I've seized into deciding to be intentional about finding inspiration for my cuisine as I'm growing into the fields of cooking, becoming a chef, and really, truly taking that food culture with me. And that led me to studying catering, then the first restaurant, early 2000 in Brooklyn, then a second restaurant in Brooklyn. Then my first cookbook, that first cookbook led to the idea of this other opportunity, because I had to think of ingredients, substitutions, because the market here didn't have access to those ingredients, and I didn't get that. I was like, why shouldn't we create a value chain for those ingredients? And in thinking about the ingredients, thinking about ingredients that are underutilized, that are grown by small farmers in Africa, is a way to giving back, to create opportunities there. And the first ingredient platform of this company that I created became Yolele. It became Fonio, and that's an underutilized grain that I will talk to you about a lot. And this is a grain that we have been distributing across the US in platforms like Whole Foods and other supermarkets. And that's, I'm a chef and restaurateur and cookbook author.
Pretty good. He's good at that, right? This could be a contest or something. And of course, you had Fonio at lunch today. I'd never had it. Wow. All right. Next on board, Palamate. She is Haitian-born, raised in Newark and Harlem. As a little girl, she started getting interesting in photography, went to college, fashion. It's hard to sum her up. Social entrepreneur, creative director, big campaigns like The Gap, L'Occitane, and this all led up to Fondam. Did I say it right?
Famjam.
Famjam, see? Because she's such a lovely dame, right? A young dame. That's what it is. She's lovely. Anyway, sorry. But I'm very excited, you can tell. I'm so happy to be here. And I want to say that this beautiful head wrap she's wearing, this is what Femme Dame started. And it now includes a line of accessories made in Haiti. And so your minute. Okay, what's your
Sure.
story?
I was born and raised in Haiti. I moved to the States when I was 12. As a young girl, I was shy, and I quickly realized, or I was made to believe, that some of the best traits about myself were not celebrated or were taught to me that they were not enough. And so I spent my early adulthood challenging myself to place myself in uncomfortable situations and to redefine who I was. I went to college to study economics, and I thought I would work for a nonprofit, and I would go back to Haiti and serve in that way. And I tried to get different internships, different volunteering opportunities, and could never find one. And so I decided to challenge myself once more and move to New York City and Harlem right after I graduated, and started working in hospitality. And working there, I found my voice, my creative voice. I kept meeting people who told me I was a strong storyteller, and I believed them, and I started to practice. That led me to create my company that I sold in indoor and outdoor markets in Harlem on a folded table, never realizing how far it would take me. And here I am.
Here she is. I studied economics too. That must be, we were meant to get together here. Although my path was different and certainly not as creative as yours. But at any rate, now finally, Will Mbiakap, born in Cameroon, loved basketball, loved sports. You can just tell, you can see, right? You don't have to look at him and not know that he's an athletic person. But he's taken major steps, big steps at NBA Africa, developing these groundbreaking partnerships with top public and private organizations in Africa. He is now the executive chair of the African Sport and Creative Institute, ASCI, and known as well for the business of African sports. But it just seemed like it was waiting to happen what you're doing, it seems.
Yeah, look, I'm just really blessed, to be honest with you. So my name is Will Mbiakap, as you mentioned, originally from Cameroon. My mom is from Morocco, so I got the best of both worlds, North and Sub-Saharan Africa. And yeah, for 10 years I was leading the NBA growth in Africa, so focusing on the business development, but also partnerships. And also I have to say, I'm very honored to be here. Thank you again, Soukaina. Really appreciate you having me here, because I'm a son of FCV setting. I'm coming from a very humble area of Yaoundé, Cameroon. I was just being blessed with exposure, with opportunities. And I truly believe that within those 1.4 billion people we have in Africa, they just need one opportunity to make a major change. And I've just been one of the beneficiaries of the transformative power of sports.
So, yes, applause, I agree. And so much more to discuss with you guys now, and I want to go to you, Pierre. This is so amazing, right? I mean, he could have just been doing shows on Food Network and writing more cookbooks and probably, all kinds of things. And yet how much was it a combination of you wanting to help African farmers or realizing, dang, I can't get any fonio in the States, and it kind of, sort of led to that. And how does it help African farmers?
Well, it does help African farmers because they didn't have access to markets. So the whole thing, I can give you a brief summary of how it happened. And I did continue cooking and writing cookbooks, and I just released my fourth one, and running 2 restaurants in New York City at the moment. But what happened is, as I was exploring writing those cookbooks, traveling to remote areas of Senegal to do research on the cookbooks, because I wanted the book to be about the story of those farmers, the story of those fishermen, the story of those producers who are never talked about, but without them there's no cookbooks, there's no restaurants, there's no chefs, that's where it starts. So that connection was important for me. I wanted the reader to know that. And as I'm traveling to learn myself, to learn more about it, I'm seeing in this most remote part of Senegal where they serve you fonio, this grain. This is also one of the poorest regions of the country. This is a region where there's no youth. Everyone is gone. There's just migration is amazing. I think it's the highest rate of migration. Everyone is looking for opportunities out there. They try to make it to Europe in the most drastic ways. Some try to go on dugout boats, fishermen dugout boats, and the fishermen are happy to be the one doing it because there's no fish in the ocean because of also the overexploitation, overfishing. So how it helps them, to answer your question, is now we can contract them to grow something that they've been growing for 5,000 years or more. Fonio is the oldest cultivated grain in Africa. And we can contract them. Before this time, they didn't have access to market. They didn't even, they were growing it for their own subsistence. But this grain is so fantastic. It's one of the grain that grows the fastest. It can grow it within 2 months. It's a grain that's so resilient, and it's drought resistant. It's a grain that relies on the first rain. As soon as it rains, it doesn't matter how the rainy season comes, the fonio is guaranteed to grow. And not only is guaranteed to grow, it regenerates the soil. It can grow in poor soil, and it regenerates it because it has deep roots that add nutrients to the soil. There's so much going for this grain. Not only that, it's also very versatile. You can adapt it to different type of cuisines. I've dedicated a whole cookbook on fonio, the fonio cookbook, just to tell you you can go from the traditional recipes all the way to sushi or pasta with fonio. So it's really that type of a grain. So it didn't make sense to me that a grain like this didn't have access to market.
Right.
And I thought, as a chef based in New York, from a vantage point, I've seen how quinoa was being so successful. And fonio is also that type of grain. It's gluten-free. It had possibilities. So this is how it changed, by contracting them and opening market for them.
Well, and an area that where people could, all they could do was leave. That starts it right there, I think, in terms of how powerful this kind of thing can be. So, Paulo, to you, Fondom is closely connected to Haiti, first in your birth and part of your upbringing, and then in terms of how you developed it, headdresses, accessories. But I want to know specifically in terms of how does this move forward and how does it help Haiti's had a very tough time for a while, and violence, gender violence. What is the link there? What is the support that this gives?
Thank you for this question. I want to start with something Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said. It's not a direct quote. She said, we dehumanize people when we reduce them to a single thing, right? And I agree. And she goes to saying how dignity is just as important as food, and that when we talk about people in need, we shouldn't only talk about their needs, we should talk about what they love, we should talk about what they aspire to, and we should talk about what makes them happy. So when I think about young women in Haiti, after being one myself and knowing who I was and the kind of dreamer I was, I can't only think of the suffering and all of the heartbreaking news that has happened and continues to happen in Haiti. I think about their intelligence, their beauty. I think about their potential. And so growing up here in the United States and trying to understand who I was, when I first started FumJum with the markets, I quickly realized that, to begin, let me explain to you what the term FumJum is. It directly translates to strong woman in Haitian Creole. And when I think of strong women, I think of my great-grandmother who raised my mother and myself, and I think of the women who work in the markets, who carry loads on their heads, who tie their heads out of necessity, not as a fashion statement, but because they need those products, right? And so I think of myself stepping into myself, trying to find my voice, and I realized that I had to fight to not accept the future that would be handed to me, but to define my own, right? And so with FumJum, I wanted to defy what acceptable accessories were and what was the beauty standard or what was considered elegant or chic, right? I said, we don't wear head wraps just to run errands or hide our messy hair. We wear head wraps to show up and take space, right? We wear head wraps as an extension of our natural beauty. And that's the work I've been able to do for the past 10 years. So when I think about that work in terms of the visual stories that I've been able to create with the very few resources that I've had, I think about my younger selves who can see these images, who can then allow them or give them permission to find their voices. And I feel that when you find your voice, not only do you show up for yourself, but you show up for your community, right? And so I think that's the most important aspect of my work. It's not the different campaigns we've run in the past to help support organizations, although those are important too. It's not only creating work for Haitian workers, it's the life work. It's the legacy. It's what are we leaving for generations to come, because they are not their suffering, they are their potential.
So, Will, you cover a large gamut in Africa, in African sports. And this is I'll ask the question, so what are the returns on your investments in African youth sports? Well, I mean, there's a number of ways to answer that, and I think certainly in this context, and certainly after what Paula just said, and the whole thing about being an entrepreneur and what that can bring to people and how important that is, what it gives you, right? Then that's how do you answer that question for the work you've done over the years and the work you're doing now?
Yeah, thank you. So look, I think I'm going to try to share with the FCV community a key learning from sports. And just keeping in mind that the topic today and over the next 3 days is adapting and innovating in a volatile world, right? Mm-hmm. So in sports, and I'm coming from basketball, as I mentioned, we talk about the term understanding the game. Understanding the game. So what game are we on? And let me take the African perspective. So Africa is a 1.4 billion people continent, as you know, and the average age is 19 years old. So first of all, that means that the youth of the world is in Africa. Number two, by 2050, one human being out of four will be African. The driving demographic force of the world is in Africa. Again, understanding the game, understanding your tangible and intangible assets. I'm honored to be with my brother Pierre here when we talk about food. So let's talk about food security. 65% of arable land in the world is in Africa. So when you talk about food, you're going to be talking about Africa. My sister here is in fashion. You probably heard about the Cotton Four. The top 4 countries producing cotton in Africa, Ivory Coast, Benin, et cetera, producing quality cotton for your industry. So what I mean by that, understanding the game, is understanding that when you deal with people in FCV settings, you have to understand, you make them understand that what is at stake is not only their future, it's not only their region future or their nation future, it's not only the continent future, it's actually the world future. This is what is at stake. And once they understand that they have the power to make a change at their level to do their part, then you've won the game. So that's what my learning would be from sports.
Yeah. So I guess another thing we wanted to raise with you is in terms of resilience, broad question, peacekeeping. Do you see in the work you've done so far or where it's heading next, and again linking it to everybody in this room, that your work, what your vision is, and maybe even in some cases if you can be a little more specific, because I think that's what we're trying to get at here too, like things you've actually seen on the ground or others have seen, but I guess you can answer it anyway. And I'm going to go back to you, Paula, to start on this one. How do you fit yourself, one person with a big footprint and a large presence, and you guys are all kind of stars in your own way, right? How does what you're doing, and how does it link to actually that?
How does my work link
to this whole question of helping to build resilience in society, and ultimately, I mean, peacekeeping, obviously you're not troops on the ground, but we need a lot more than that anyway, don't we? How do you get there?
Okay, so when I think about the work that I've done for Haiti, and to be completely transparent, I don't even think I've fully begun, right? It's my life's work. I think of my work, and when it comes to Haiti, as tending to a community garden, right? maybe without experience. And what I've realized is that we tend to get frustrated when things don't go our way. When we start something and we don't see the results right away and we say, you know what, it's just not meant to be. We give up. And then something terrible happens and then we go back and we try to patch it up. And to me, I believe that my life's work as my lifestyle in general is to continue to feed into the work that I'm doing. And it takes patience, especially when you don't have a lot of resources. It takes a lot of research. It takes finding ways to collaborate and adding value to some of the people who are already doing great work on the ground. And so that's what I've been able to do in terms of showing up for my community, knowing that I will continue to do that for the rest of my life. So I'm not just showing up and sending a one-time donation. I am constantly trying to find ways to amplify the voices of the women doing the work on the ground in Haiti and the voices of people in general who are looking at all of the different talents that we have. Right? And so I think right now my value is learning, because that's important. It's doing my research and constantly collaborating. And some examples I work with companies, with organizations like Haiti Cultural Exchange. I love their mission because they're bringing artists from Haiti and they're giving them opportunity to show their work in New York City, which is incredible, because imagine you're in a country where you think there's no hope, right? It's so fragile. And how do you show up? How do you create? How do you even inspire others if you don't think there are opportunities? So someone like Regine, the founder of Haiti Cultural Exchange, who says, I see you, I'll fight for you to take your work, and so your work can be celebrated. Right? And I think that's so impactful. And yes, we need food. Yes, we need security. But we also need to invest in the human beings and all of the work they can do. You said it yourself. You were fortunate enough to have the privilege to travel, and your voice carries others, right? So many that are coming after you. And so I believe by investing in the talent that we have, they can go back, like me, and pay it forward and continue to show up.
Mm-hmm. I want to hear more about from you in terms, because this question is kind of a broad question, right? How does what your work has been doing help this broad sense of resilience, which you're trying to be developed in these communities, and even, many of them, peacekeeping, how it all comes together. But, I can just see those villages you were talking about. I've never been there, but in my mind, I can see the coastline. I can see things, empty boats, or I can see older people. I can see all the kids have left because they've got to get someplace where they have an opportunity. So with this kind of work, from what you've experienced then, and again, trying to create this, well, what more can be done, and how do people do it? What have you experienced, and how if it hasn't, what kind of fruit has it borne so far on these fronts? You said some of those poorest people, even in Africa. How do you see what's happened so far, and how that could progress and broaden?
So what we did within 5 years, really, to take a grain that was not known in this market, in the US market, and to be able to introduce it through the largest supermarkets, to add even new products from those grains. We have not only the fonio grains, we have different fonio pilafs, all inspired by the tradition of our cuisine. Now we are in the snack category, we have fonio chips, we have different type of chips that really addresses the consumers here, and these consumers who are also the conscious ones, who want to have an impact, who want to be part of the solution, are now going out there, and in addition to having an impact, they also having something that's good for their health, that's nutritious, and that's delicious too. Those chips are really well received. And we even went beyond that. We introduced the grain to other industries. Now we have fonio beer that you can find at Whole Foods.
Did you say fonio beer?
Fonio beer, yes, fonio beer. We have Pilsner,
Wow.
double Pilsner. We did collaborations with Brooklyn Brewery, and you need grains to make beer, and they realized that, hey, we can meet our goals, sustainable development goals, by introducing Fonio beer, and that's what they did. And it turns out it's a delicious beer, and now other breweries are into the conversation. We traveled to Copenhagen to meet Carlsberg people, which are the 5th largest brewery in the world, and they're very, very interested because that is aligned with the way they see the impact they could be having. And Heineken is in the conversation, now Guinness is in the conversation. So we created a demand, and that all started with that will to create a brand to tell the story. And that was the first thing that we did, create a brand, Yolele, tell the story. Now the demand is here. We have a challenge now. We have to make sure the supply is following the demand, and we want to make sure that supply is doing it in a way that's having an impact for the small farmers. They should be the one that would be the ultimate beneficiary of this boom. And I'm saying boom with being very careful, because we don't want Fonio to become the next quinoa. That's something that we are also very intentional about. We don't want Fonio to be this grain that becomes this it grain, and then is taken away from small farmers in West Africa and being grown in Montana or in Texas or in Ukraine. You know, it should be, and I think this is where we are at. We have created a model of development that would start from the small farming communities, which they need support. Mr. Jagana talked about the type of support that the World Bank would do, and this is the kind of thing that needs to be, they need to be supported in growing Fonio in the same ways, and as they do it, introducing Fonio not only to the breweries, but also the other food companies, Nestle's and Kellogg's and Unilever and Mars, they're all using grains. So this is how you can see now something happening, creating an industry. And another thing to finish, making sure it's not only about Fonio. We need to support the hundreds of other underutilized crops that are grown in those regions too, because if you do it just for Fonio, Fonio becomes a cash crop and they just stop growing the others. We need to support multi-cropping. We need to support crops that are grown in rotation, and that's how you have an impact on the environment, impact on the communities with economic opportunities, and impact on the consumers who have now access to a diversity of products.
We're going to go to audience Q&A in just a minute, but Will, there's been something I wanted to ask you, because I saw a piece that was done about the big sports arena that's been built. Hotels are going to be there in Africa, and how this is part of this whole business model, you could say, of expanding a sport across a very athletic nation, et cetera. So in terms of this same idea of, is it work this way? So like, well, if I can start making a living and if things are growing, then all the other conflicts and things start fading away for people? Is there something about furthering sports in an area that is a troubled area or whatever, that when you're doing your work with basketball and everything you've done across, all over in Africa, how does that work? Do you see any direct link? Or are we kind of am I kind of silly to say that? It's just a general process of growth, of things getting stronger, and rising up that way. Again, when we're talking about fragility, conflict, and violence areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, first of all, I think sports is just a fabulous vehicle in any setting, FCV and non-FCV. But sports is definitely a fabulous vehicle to engage with people at all age, all gender, all communities. Just to give you a number, 80% of the world population are sports fans. 80%. That means sports is a universal language. Wherever you are, wherever you go, you speak the same language. That's one thing. Number two, from a social impact perspective, sports help address 6 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals: gender equality, women empowerment, economic empowerment, well-being, creating sustainable jobs, and we'll talk about the business side of sports afterwards. But first thing first, yes, sports does help in FCV setting to rebuild people, heal them, it helps them build confidence, build relationship, and get back to who they were and maybe more. So I think the social aspect and the social impact of sports is something that all people in the FCV community would like to consider. But furthermore, if we think about, you talked about earlier of relationship. I think one thing someone said this morning, senior leadership was saying from the World Bank, she was saying prevention. Well, sports does help prevent those situations of fragility or violence because you develop relationship. And I'm not talking about sports at elite level. I'm talking about grassroots sports. The fact that one team from one country will go visit another team from the neighboring country and have a game. But it's not just about the game, it's what happened before, during, and after. It's all those lifelong relationships that you will create through the game of basketball, football, or whatever. That is, for me, how you help preventing conflict. Obviously, sports diplomacy. It's another aspect of sports that you may want to consider. But once you've healed someone, once you create hope, and the great, I'm going to have to quote the great Nelson Mandela. You know, he was saying that sports can bring hope and can change the world and can bring hope where there was only despair. So yes, indeed, once you create hope and you've rebuilt character, you've instilled those values of tolerance, self-confidence, you also have to think about business. So here in the US, sports is a humongous business, right? You got the NBA, NFL, MLB, so on and so forth. Roughly worldwide, sports is 3% of the world GDP. So that means there are a lot of jobs available for all those entrepreneurs who wants to get involved. I wasn't good enough to play basketball and I didn't play in the NBA. Actually, I played for the NBA, but in the corporate games. So I don't know if that's eligible. But I did make a career from a passion to a job, representing the NBA at the very highest level, leading the business development effort of the NBA in Africa. So sports does provide a lot of jobs for all those people. So again, in a volatile world where we're trying to innovate, let's look at sports from a different perspective, a holistic perspective, from prevention to healing, developing hope, developing people, developing business people, and making sure that they can make a living out of their passion.
Perfect. And that's one thing I started thinking about a lot after I was asked to participate is, wow, you know, again, there's certain kind of tools. The World Bank, obviously, you know, decades, hours and hours of people's lives and work and money spent, but maybe there's another kind of tool that could go in the toolkit, and I think that's what you all make me think of. So now, please, there's a microphone right there. We got a good chunk of time for questions, so just hop right up there and ask. Don't be shy. I can't imagine you guys are shy. Here's one. All right. Say your name and then ask your question.
Hi, my name is John Weiss, and I have a question for the gentleman on my left about grains, African grains. And my question is, how will you prevent large non-African corporations from taking over the farming and stealing the farming industry from African farmers?
Excellent question, and that's something we've been struggling from the beginning. We knew that the quinoa story was inspiring, but it was also a thing that we had to avoid. Like I mentioned, we didn't want Fonio to become the same method of agriculture, intensive agriculture, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way it was it got to us. So one is we needed to innovate on the processing. The processing of Fonio is not adequate for the goal that we have of being a world-class crop, meaning there's already close to 50% of post-harvest waste. We had to address that. There's also the inefficiency in the cleaning of Fonio. So we hired a company, Bueller, to come up with the solution to create a mill that would not only remove the waste from 50% to like single digit, but also to take it from like 1 ton per day to 2 tons per hour in the processing. So truly revolutionize the processing so that we can access Fonio to the big food companies. So once you have that solved and you're making sure you're working with small farmers, at our own level, we're already controlling the supply. We're making sure we have the supply. So there's no Texan farmers who can come and decide to grow fonio in Texas. We can compete with them, which is what quinoa couldn't do. Quinoa, they kept growing fonio, quinoa without controlling the processing the way it's being done in the US. And now the US is doing intensified type of growing quinoa, and the farmers in Peru and Chile couldn't compete. We also have to have support from the regional level. At the policy level, we want the governments to protect fonio, to protect the seeds from not traveling if it's not for research. The seeds cannot go outside of the region of West Africa, particularly in the US or in Europe, unless it's for research. We still work in progress. It's an uphill battle. We're fighting big food right here, but that's one of the ways we're addressing it. Protecting the name of fonio. It cannot be called fonio if it's not grown by small farmers in West Africa. That's something we can do. It's being done for other products in other parts of the world. So the appellation is something that we are working on with indication, geographical indication. So those are some of the tools we are using.
Next.
Hello, panelists. My name is Steven, and I'm an intern at the United Nations Populations Fund. So my question has to do with scalability, right? I was an entrepreneur in college. I had my own small business. I pitched it. And the big problem I faced was scalability, especially in the FCV setting. How do you leverage that social human capital involving local communities while scaling your business at the same time? Thank you very much.
Okay, and let's just, you guys take that too. Yeah, just because you've scaled different kinds of businesses already.
Well, for me, the answer was already what I've said, investing in the innovation. And once you can turn fonio from 1 ton per day to 2 tons per hour and removing the waste from 50% to 10%, now you have a mill that you can duplicate as the demand grows. And then you support the small farmers by contracting them, and that's how we're scaling.
I think that's always been one of my struggles, especially as the founder of a company that really values sustainability and making things in small batches and trying to do what's right. We came across this issue a few months ago where I created this product, and it's not something I've heard about before, and so I make head wraps, right? And over the years, we listen to our customers. So we've had a lot of customers without hair or who suffer with alopecia or just different hair loss issues who have written to us, and they would say that they want their head wraps as tall as mine, as tall as Paola's specifically, but they don't have hair. So how do we do it, right? And so that question has haunted me for years, and I've overthought it. And then last year, I decided, I came up with a solution, and we launched it. And we did not anticipate the demand for that product. So I created this product called Wrap Base, and it basically allows people with little to no hair to create these tall, voluminous head wrap styles, right? And I thought about all of the different features. It had to be lightweight, it had to be non-slip, it had to fit various head shapes, and it could be versatile. You could wear it forward or backwards, but we did not anticipate the demand, only because when I told people that idea, no one jumped up in their seats about it. No one called me brilliant until we released it, and then it sold out within a matter of hours, right? And then we had so many issues trying to find all of the different parts that made the product what it was. And so I find myself constantly trying to weigh between creating things sustainably and also scaling. And I've decided that my work in terms of impact and my legacy was not about the size or how big of a space that my creations took, right? I've decided that, I use the term powerhouse. I said, I don't want to be a powerhouse if it means that I have to use people, right? As a founder of a company like FumJum, I cannot create products that are not made ethically or sustainably, right? And so I said, then do I is scaling something that I sacrifice, or do I constantly try to find the balance between the two? And so I don't think I found a solution. I'm just constantly working to see what works. And honestly, we have been emailed a lot of opportunities, and sometimes the big names are not always the best moves. I think just because something carries the big name does not mean that it's for you, and that's something I've learned to do. And I'm learning to scale with what feels right for me. And perhaps that's not what most business people would do, and maybe that's why the state of the world is the way it is now.
So, Will,
Yeah.
again, when it comes to scaling,
Yeah, look, my fellow panelists, they did a great job answering already, so I'm just going to make it very short, especially for this gentleman right there. In FCV environment and overall, I think technology is a no-brainer. Obviously, it helps you to scale up very quickly. Technology innovation, I think that's what Pierre was alluding to. That's one. Number two is your distribution level. So how much of your distribution network do you have from both sides, right? Supplier and clients. So that will help you scale very quickly. And more specifically now on FCV environment, I think we look at human capital, the people that we have. I think those are the key for any scale-up program or strategy. So those will be my three answers for you.
hello.
Hi, thank you. It's a great panel. And my name is Fatima. I'm part of IFC's Creative Industries Initiative, and I'm leading in IFC's investments in the media, sports, and entertainment sector. So very exciting panel to see the soft power of creative industries in a fragile and conflict-affected environment. My question is to Will. Will, we're seeing a lot of activity in the sports and entertainment sector in Africa. How do you see the future in a fragility and conflict-affected situation such that we've seen foreign leagues like NBA Africa coming in, and there are a couple of other NFL, PFL, and all of these leagues coming in. But how do you see foreign investment in a fragility setting? Because even the investment took very, very long in Africa to come in. So investors are shy of coming into more fragility-affected countries. So what is the solution? How can we help as private sector investors and the World Bank Group?
It's a great question. Thank you, Fatima. And the straight answer is you are the solution. I'll come back to that. So first of all, you're right. There's a lot of investment pouring into Africa. The NBA, we did it with the Basketball Africa League, multi-million-dollar investment. The folks at NFL are also understanding that Africa is a big market. I gave the number initially, right? 1.4 billion people, 19 years average age, people who are going to consume and practice sports for the next 50 years. So a lot of consumption, a lot of money to be made. But you're right. When you look at FDIs over the past, the foreign direct investment, foreign direct investment over the past 7 years have halved. So they were from 12 to 6%. So why people are not investing in Africa? You know, why cost of capital is so high? Why access to finance is so high? So those are questions that are not only applicable to sports, but overall economy on the continent. So now what does the future looks like? I think actually the future is bright. There's never been a better time. I always say that there's never been a better time to invest in sports in Africa. It's right now. 10 years from now, you're too late, and the yield that you're going to make is going to be too small. So if you want to invest in sports in Africa, it's right now. And you have so many opportunities throughout the value chain, merchandising, events. You talk about media. I'd like to point out entertainment, such a great, sports and entertainment are so intertwined, right? You look at music, art, all of these come together. So it's the perfect time to invest. We are actually witnessing the fourth industrial revolution, what I call the revolution of IP for intellectual property. A kid from, I think Ousmane was mentioning Sikasso, which is a small, second largest city in Mali actually, or a kid from Yaoundé or Uganda, for those who know the ghetto kids. People can produce content locally and be viewed globally and make money out of it, which is amazing, right? So for me, the future is bright because of this revolution, but what needs to happen is you guys to be the solution. The solution comes from the private sector indeed. We need more entrepreneurs. We need to equip them, and this is where the development banks comes into the picture. I often say that. I think sports can change the public development bank's game. So how can it change it? We need to cut up on those processes because it takes a long time for any entrepreneur to get funds from different banks. That's one. We need to lower the cost of capital. That's number two. We need to allow for banks, public development banks, to view sports as a space for innovation, where you try new instruments, where you take more risk when you put more skin in the game. If you do that, I believe that the future is really bright for Africa.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. And we just have to wrap up here, but I want to ask a real quick question of everybody because I've been thinking of this. I'd like to ask you guys in the audience too, so maybe we'll do that in coffee. But is then, in some sense, is that, you know, the development banks making more capital available, et cetera, helping investment of various kinds, is it pretty clear that from what you guys know better maybe than us because you're right, but still, that these kinds of tools, these kinds of here's what you can do in your toolkit of working with FCV, does that need to be in the toolkit for these people to apply, to consider? And I wonder, is a healthy dose of social media training and promoting things a worthwhile investment too?
100%. Absolutely. I mean, especially for small businesses that can't afford, we don't have a big marketing budget. We don't have we can't afford this type of campaign. But social media allow us to reach the world, and that's what we have realized from the get-go. We knew that we needed to have someone at ULLA who is in charge of IG and TikTok and Twitter. And that's like the way we could get to this audience of people who are those conscious consumers who also become ambassadors, and they use the same social media to really amplify your message, and they cook with fonio and they take pictures and they throw it to their audience, and that has a ripple effect, and it really is a powerful tool, absolutely.
I would also like to add, without social media, using it as a tool of marketing for my company, I wouldn't have been able to take it from my header-ups from the markets to shipping products around the world. It has definitely helped. And people also felt connected to my story. And then I was able to grow. And even now, I use social media as a way to discover new talents in Haiti, to keep up with all of the brilliant minds and the way they create, from comedians to artists, to singers, to dancers. So yes.
Just to complement on that, I think, yes, toolkits is essential. You're absolutely right. I think one thing that we kind of discount or don't look at much more is the collaboration between people. We are here before a crowd of top experts in FCVs. You know better than us. But what we don't do maybe enough is to have meetings where we sit and we listen to you, we learn from you, your context, your challenges, where are the opportunities, and we may come up with some solutions from our words as well. I think so. My recommendation would be, yes, toolkits, you're absolutely right. Technology, you're absolutely right. But maybe more collaboration between people from different worlds.
Amen. Very, very good. Well, let's give a big hand of applause to Will Mbiaka, Paul Palamate, and Chef Pierre Thiem. Oh, quickly, just quickly, some very important announcements. Chef Thiem's food going to be served in the main lunchroom tomorrow. Don't miss that. Get in line. You might even, leave a panel early. You get in front of the line. Haha. And also, Will is going to be back tomorrow as part of the lightning rounds. That's going to start at 9 o'clock in the morning. Be here. Get earlier. Get your coffee. 8 people talking about, again, innovative things maybe you haven't thought of, or at least not in the way you thought of them before, to be part of these solutions. And 4 concurrent sessions now, starting at 4 o'clock. Have to drink your coffee a little bit faster. I did go a little bit over the limit, but it was worth it, right? I mean, come on, this is a great panel.